Welcome to the Business Transformation Podcast. My name is Heath Gascoigne, and this is the show for business transformators who are part business strategists, part business designers, part collaborators, and part negotiators who have moved past just design and includes oversight of the implementation of those transformations, which includes stakeholder management, coordination, and negotiation. If you work in strategy development and implementation, and you work to ensure that it is aligned to the business design and technology, then you're probably a business transformator. This is the show where we speak to industry experts and professionals to share their stories and strategies and insights to help you start, turn around, and grow your business transformation. Welcome to the Business Transformation Podcast. And in this episode, we're talking to one of those industry experts. We're speaking to Steven Pivnik. Steven has a unique experience of building and running a fast-growing international IT software and services business from a founder's perspective. This experience covers large licensing deals with IBM, Google, Microsoft, as well as partial and later full exits. Currently, Steven holds many titles, which is not uncommon in the marketplace today. Steven holds the CEO Advisory Board member at Inc. CEO Project. He is also the founder CEO of AIP Advisory, LLC, operating partner at Acresis, LLC, also been in there for some time. And the one is a lot of experience in enterprise or powering enterprise transformations at Binary Tree for 27 years as both the founder and CEO, and then moved into executive chairman. And prior to that, CIO of Need to Meet and many other roles. So we're looking way back here, going into the late end of last century. Lots of experience in both startup and also in transformations. So we got a vast range of topics we can cover here. So Steven, let's start from the beginning. How did you get into what you're into now? You're now advised to CEOs.
Right. So I went through a pretty interesting journey in starting my own company and growing it internationally to about 200 employees across 12 countries, servicing the vast majority of the Fortune 5,000 clients that are out there. So I can talk about all of those transformation projects that we've worked on. But what I'm doing right now, currently in my next chapter, is taking the experience that I went through and taking other fellow entrepreneurs and other founders through a similar journey, because there's a lot of headaches and a lot of challenges involved in growing any company and then later successfully exiting it. So I'm finding it, and it's been 16 months since my last exit. So I find it very rewarding in helping other entrepreneurs navigate this incredible journey.
Okay, fantastic. So you come from, as someone when people talk or refer to me as you get people who write books about what they do, and they're more an academic. And then you get people who are practitioners who do what they say. And so you are one of those guys that have done, you are not only talking the talk, but you have walked the walk.
I think so. Thank you.
No, fantastic. So you have the really first-hand experience, and this is, that's invaluable for, even guys like me who is, have their own startup, and now you're advising them, and from a perspective of you've been there before, you know what it's like. So do you have a particular process that you follow when you go and engage with the CEO, or you go and engage with a client for the transformation?
Yeah, there's a couple of different starting points. It all depends on how far along the journey a company is and how mature they are. So for instance, with Acresis, where I'm an operating partner, we typically specialize in companies that are doing north of 5 million USD in annual sales. Between 5 and 100 million, is our sweet spot. And we typically start off with an executive team assessment and evaluation. And we want to make sure that the CEO is surrounded with folks that have been there, done that. In my mind, there's nothing more important for a leadership team. People that don't have the experience that is necessary at the company's current size, or at the size they need to be at, aren't going to be as effective as people that have been there, done that. So an executive team evaluation and assessment, and potential upgrading of talent is super important as stage one.
So
And
you see, I talk about it. Teamwork makes the dream work, and so it sounds like you're big on the team.
Oh, 100%. And the teamwork needs to be there, and the expertise and the talent on that team needs to be, top rated in order for the growth and the eventual exit to be successful.
So you did two things there for that assessment. You did the current state assessment of where the company is at that point in time, and then you did more likely, like in transformation delivery speak, they'd say the target operating model or the future operating model. What does that look like? And then you're looking at it going, okay, do you currently have the capability for where you want to go with the current staff you've got? Yes, or if you don't have it, then you were saying, well, we hire, or we go looking for, fill the gaps maybe.
Yeah, 100%. That's well said. And another really important part is, like most CEOs, founders, they'll say, great, that's a great process. I agree. But then we also turn the table back to him or her and say, are you the right CEO, for the rest of this journey? Yes. And that's a really, really tough pill for many to swallow. And in most cases, the answer is yes, which is totally great. And then, we proceed. In my case, when I asked myself that question with the help of my, Acresis friends, because I actually, utilize them as a advisory company for my own corporate growth, I said, no, you know what? I've taken this company as far as I possibly can. And I'm happy to hand over the reins to a professional CEO that's been there, done that, and has experience at this size company and greater. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I gave myself a promotion to executive chairman. So
nice one. So there you get the golden parachute then.
yeah, exactly. People think if they relinquish the CEO title, they're relinquishing control of their organization, and that's definitely not true. So there's definitely an opportunity to maintain control. Obviously, it's not on the day-to-day operational level, but you're still hopefully a majority, shareholder of the organization. The CEO reports to you or to the board or to the greater board. So you still have the control that you're afraid of losing, while at the same time handing over the reins to an experienced executive for the day-to-day stuff.
Fantastic. Okay, there's a little tip there for budding founders. That if they were looking at an exit and they're thinking, oh no, an exit means me giving away the reins of directorship, they may take up a role as on the board, possibly as the chairman, and then still retain control.
Right.
Probably exactly. Like Rupert Murdoch does with News Limited. He's no longer the CEO, but he's the board. He's the chairman.
Right. Exactly.
Good one. So the starting point is the guy at the top.
So the guy at the top and the team that he or she is surrounding themselves with. I mean, that's incredibly important. That's where it starts. Okay. The next step is really around corporate governance and making sure that the organization has all of its ducks in a row. One of my statements is like ABC. ABC used to stand for always be closing from a sales perspective, which is it still does. But I like to refer to always be closing as referring to the company's books. Always be closing your books. Now have your process have all your business processes aligned in such a way, especially your financial processes, that allows you to close the books as soon as the month ends. Our process used to take 15 days, sometimes longer, and we with the help of a professional CFO, again, back to the topic of upgrading some talent, we got our process down to 3 days. So, and again, it took a while. It took a good 6 months in order to refine our processes. From invoicing to billing to collections to every single other accounting action that needs to transpire. So getting your organization in a way, getting it to close quickly so that you have something to present, because you're going to need to present your financials in a variety of different instances, whether you're looking for a new partner, you're looking for a new banking relationship, you're looking for a loan, you're looking for an equity investor. There's always going to be to present. And back to the topic of corporate governance, it's just not financials, it's everything else. You'd be surprised how many entrepreneurs just don't have all of the standard documentation available present, when needed. Your incorporation papers, your stock option plan, your employee list with their compensation plans, the sales compensation plans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a myriad of documentation that's required, and for that, when that's organized properly, and you're asked to present it, you're building better credibility when you present it quickly and professionally, versus giving organizations data that they've requested piecemeal.
Okay, you're right. So you want to package it up. So it's more of you're doing a lot of proactive activity beforehand, knowing that the request may come, and so you're looking good, but also they're looking good as a result of having good processes.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So the next one is strategic planning and execution, and this is the step that typically branches off into many different areas throughout the length of an engagement. It's again amazing how many companies don't have a strategic plan in place on what they're looking to accomplish. They're kind of most organizations are run by the seat of the pants, and they're just reacting to various market changes and market shifts, and then they pivot in one direction, pivot another. People are just in love with, oh, we just pivoted. Well, 70% of those pivots probably weren't necessary if you had probably planned for them. That's that's not to say surprises won't happen, for sure, but you need to be executing against a strategic plan that you've set for yourself for 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 years.
Okay, so with that strategic plan, which I think that's probably an overlooked thing, or something that is probably let's say mixed up or a bit confused between a vision, what they want to achieve, and their mission. They say, what is our purpose? And then so if the vision, it would be, this is our number one, in transformation we would say this is the number one requirement. And then we have got some strategies. We've got people, process, technology, and data that we can pull or leverage. So what are we going to do about our people? What's our people element of this, our strategy to implement this vision? What's our process? What's our technology? What's our data? Do you look at that as well when you're having this conversation with the CEO and say, okay, where are you going? What's your true north look like? What's the vision?
No, 100%. Those conversations are definitely a necessity. And what I found, which is really helpful, is to get others' opinions on a variety of topics. So another organization that I'm part of is called the Inc. CEO Project, and that's basically a high-level summary is a peer CEO peer advisory group. So it's really interesting when you present business challenges and planning and desired outcomes to a diverse set of CEOs of similarly sized companies, but in different industries. I mean, it's one thing to continue to get advice from peer groups within your own industry, but it's probably going to sound the same. So when you when a technology company goes to a manufacturing company and presents a challenge, you'd be surprised at how interesting that response is, and how it can be implemented and get fantastic results. So advisory boards of other executives across industries, I found which I was part of for many years, super useful in those cases.
So that's sort of like what they call it, homogeneous and heterogeneous groups, where you've got the mix. It's almost like the complementary. You get such a diverse group of people together who have something common, some common theme about them, but because they've got different mindsets, they bring this unique perspective to the group. And you find that it's almost like a brainstorming session with guys that, as you said, same size, but different industries. Is this the whole concept of the Inc. CEO project organization? Is that?
Yeah, exactly. So it's advisor led. So for each group, there's an advisor, and then there's members, like I said, across various industries, plus or minus 20% in revenue. So the group really meets almost as an unofficial board of directors. There's a quarterly meeting where individuals present their financials against forecasts. So it starts to build some discipline where you're actually the meeting, you're forecasting your financials for the next meeting, and then you're being held accountable to those financials. And then you're also presenting a business challenge, and you basically go around the room and you're getting advice on that business challenge from the other team members, and then everybody else does the same. So the quarterly meetings typically last 2 days, and there's just a wealth of knowledge that's exchanged and garnered.
Okay, you said an interesting thing there about discipline. That's I'm helping a client at the moment, and what I'm trying to describe to them about managing their processes, and said managing this processes, it requires discipline in your process management. The successful projects don't run because it's ad hoc. It's run because it's highly disciplined. And said, if you want to be successful, you need to apply some discipline. And then that's going to require some, in this case, it's going to be a cultural change, because they like this autonomy. Yeah. So how do you find that when for the CEOs, I'd imagine they're used to needing to provide some form of discipline. So the learning curve or the cultural change to them probably is not that big.
Yeah, I mean, it'll vary. Like with an organization that has some semblance of a board, whether it's an advisory board or a true board of directors, or if they have other shareholders involved. So there's already some level of discipline, but it's never it's never the level of discipline that's ideal or that you see in a public company. For the most part, it's just relatively sub $100 million companies. There's some level of loosey-goosiness that occurs, and tightening those screws is always beneficial for everybody involved.
Okay, wow. So we started from the CEO. We've got our team together, questioned the team whether the right people in place, even questioned whether the founder themselves is the right guy. Now you put some corporate governance around, mostly around financials. But the financials are so far the result of all their processes. So there would mean some looking at the processes itself. Like I'm a big fan of, or a big advocate of, when you're making changes in the organization, where do you make the changes? You make the changes where the work is done. Where's the work done? In the processes. And the processes is I think, it's overlooked. People go, well, we just do this or we just do that. And they said, oh, well, when do you do it? Oh, we do it all the time. And it's like, oh, it's so overwhelming. It's overwhelming because you don't understand what you're doing. You need to have it documented down in some format. And then this is the criticism of consultants, where they create cottage industries of process mapping, and next they get caught up in it, and all they're working on is creating beautiful presentations for clients, but not about transforming. So how do you go about with that part, going into that part about the processes? You help them with their streamlining their processes or clean them up in some way?
Well, it's always great for an outsider to take a look at how processes run, because what that statement, like when you're in the forest, you can barely see the trees.
Oh yes,
or the other.
That's a good one.
So
I love that.
For an outsider, whether it's an advisor, like myself, or maybe a peer group advisory firm, when they see something, they'll always say, "Well, why are you doing it that way?" And then the typical answer is, that's because we've always done it that way.
Yes.
And I hated, that answer, like my own company. I said, like, why do we do it that way?
Yeah, always done that way.
It's really refreshing when, that light bulb goes off, and then the person says, wow, you know what? I never thought of it from that perspective or in that context, and let's change that. And slowly but surely, things start improving. Okay,
so you like to, you have in your mind probably what the outcome should look like, but you lead the client, the CEO in that case, and possibly the team, to their own conclusions, which you already had preconceived already, that they could, so they own the solution.
100%. I mean, it's a lot easier to sell somebody their own solution versus telling them what to do. So if you lead them down that path, and then their light bulb goes off, then that
must, from your perspective, that must require a lot of some of that discipline itself, because you're just like to give them the answer.
Yeah, exactly. So, sometimes the answer is readily available. Sometimes it really does take a certain amount of discovery and due diligence, to get to that answer. But it's there. The answer is there.
Okay, all right. So we got that. Then so you've gone through that strategy, planning, and education. Now, what's the next step?
So the next step, and this is often overlooked by a lot of entrepreneurs, is actually strategic planning around the exit itself. Most companies, most folks are running 100 miles an hour, building, and then all of a sudden they find themselves with a potential exit event. Basically, that's basically like an inbound inquiry. Somebody's knocking on the door, and there's an interest, whether it be from a private equity firm, a financial buyer, or a strategic. We found and that it's really, really important to start the exit planning process, probably 12 to sometimes 24 months before you anticipate one. And that involves a myriad of things. It involves surrounding yourselves, with the right partners that are necessary for the proper exit, necessary financial firm. The accounting firm you may be using today may be great, but they're not going to present your financials as professionally as a bigger firm in an exit, because the acquiring company is going to want your audited financial statements from a very, very reputable firm. So you may not have that in place today, and you may not need it today, but be ready to pull the trigger on one.
Yep. Okay.
Same exact thing applies to your legal firm. You may be, super happy with the legal representation you currently have, but at the time of exits, it's probably going to be, one of the most important, business events in your life. You want to be represented by a firm that does this all day, every day.
All day. That's okay. They're bread and butter.
Yeah, exactly. And then the next one is an investment banking firm. There's no better outcome for an exit than to be represented by an investment banking firm who's really, really skilled at creating some sort of auction with your company. Getting an offer is fantastic, and it's every entrepreneur's dream. But imagine if there was a little bidding war happening for your company, and there was multiple bidders, either financial, strategic, or a combination of both. So entrepreneurs often don't like the fees associated with investment banking firms because from a pure numbers perspective, they seem pretty high, but you're probably going to get, 5x their fee onto the purchase price that you're envisioning for your organization, because they'll do that for you. So they're worth their weight in gold.
Okay. All right. So so you're all there. I think the common theme there so far is about team. It's a team. These partners are a part of your extended part of your team. I don't know if you'd call them that, but yeah, they are subject matter experts in their given discipline, accounting, legal, and then the corporate finance banking firm. Alrighty, and so there must be some part of marketing involved in there, I'm sure, or not.
Oh, sure. The marketing the firm for sale, or marketing the firm for just ongoing business?
Both.
So yeah, so I'm a huge upponent of really, really good marketing. And we were super fortunate to have, when we went through this process, the upgrading of talent, we found an incredible marketing executive, and our marketing activities just literally went through the roof. I mean, the brand image that was created and the amount of marketing creative leads that came into the organization also increased substantially. So if you have the right marketing executive who he or her also brings a marketing team with them, we also bring all the necessary tools, because the tools are evolving at such a fast pace these days in terms of what you utilize for automated marketing. So every team members that have the skill sets and the necessary tools and the processes is really going to make a humongous difference in inbound inquiries to your organization. So I'm a huge fan of proper marketing. Okay, so you said a few interesting things there. So when you are back in the second step there about forming the team or assessing the senior guys that are support, whether the assessment of today are the right guys to take you to the future, and of course the current let's say the target audience or the target client right now is in 5 to 100 million pounds, 100 million in the US dollars in revenue. So they're already at a size where the hiring at that point in time is going to be quite senior. Like at a VP level. Like I did a recent HR transformation for an existing organization. I think it was 14 years. They'd been together, amalgamation of 3. And when they looked at transforming the HR division, they already had their senior level people in place. So what they didn't have is they didn't have a lot of support under those teams, under those divisions. So they weren't hiring senior guys. They just knew that they had a lack of capability, a lack of people. So, but your case is probably both. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's about the processes and the people, and there needs to be a marriage, between the two. And the right people I have found will bring the necessary processes and the tools with them, because the way they've gotten, to where they are is because they utilize, best of breed technologies and capabilities and processes. So they have that skill set, and that comes with the package, if you will.
Okay, so there's a part of it. There's a process there of finding those people to start with.
Yes.
So how does that work? How do you get there? Where do you start with that? Is it LinkedIn? Is it another headhunting other companies of similar size and go, okay, you did a good job. They're 3 or 5 years down the track. There's someone's probably looking forward to leave now. If they haven't.
Yeah, headhunting is definitely an approach. I mean, that works. I mean, very, very expensive, but sometimes it's very worth the money, because you get an exact, if they do their job right, and you've shared in gory detail exactly what you're looking for, and they go out and find that right person, then again, it's a hefty fee. I hated that fee, whatever I needed to do it, but most of the time it resulted in a really good quality hire. Another way is just networking. That's why I'm a huge fan of this, peer group advisory services, as well as advisory services from other executives that have been serial entrepreneurs and that have sold multiple companies. Their network is pretty extensive. So like if you go into that network and say, hey, I'm looking for a new chief marketing officer, or I need a new head of HR, or I need a new CFO, odds are that their Rolodex is big enough where you'll have a couple of candidates. They may not be available, but hey, if you're an exciting enough company, then it's your job to sell them.
Okay, all right. So when you want to incentivize them, what is of course, if you're a 5 million a year revenue company, you're probably not the first 6 months of starting. You're probably 1 or 2 years down the track, and so you're pitching someone to come and join your company that has probably has come from maybe a similar one or a little bit older. And what sort of incentives do you have to dangle in front of them? Is it equity? Is it is it a good package, or is it they go, oh yeah, sweat equity is going to do it for me? I'm all in. You don't have to pay me because I know you're going to IPO shortly, and so we're all going to be happy soon.
Sure. I mean, there's obviously the standard components. Base pay needs to be average, in the industry, and average or above. Above obviously is always better if you can afford it, and that's a great recruiting tool if you can pay above industry rates. Bonus packages are also very attractive to folks. A lot of people don't believe in bonus packages, I found, because they have a really, really bad bonus packages in general have a bad reputation because they rarely get paid. They're so complex, and there's so many different formulas, and there's so many dependencies that an individual can have had a great quarter or a great year and still not get a penny in bonus. So bonus plans need to be structured in a way which are very, very clear, so that everybody can understand whether they're going to make it or not. Like we over communicated how well we're performing against plan, so that people understood throughout the quarter and throughout the year on how much they can potentially expect. Now, we never guaranteed it, and there were some cases where there was like a really bad month at the end, and that got impacted negatively. There was other cases where the final month was extraordinary, and then it got impacted positively. And there was like one quarter we paid a double bonus, and everybody was like ecstatic. So very carefully structured and clear bonus plan is important. And then obviously equity compensation.
I was going to say.
And some people, similar to my comments on the bonus plan, some people don't believe any paper that they get from a stock option plan is worth the paper that it's printed on, because in the past, in previous employers, that equity never turned into anything. So if you have the right type of strategic plan and you have the right type of advisors on your board or on your executive team, it really helps build credibility that this piece of paper that I'm giving you is probably going to be something, because people have done that before multiple times.
Okay, so I'm assuming there is for say equity for a advisor, if even the advisor's got equity, depending on maybe there's 3 levels of advisor. Someone who's just like someone who is, what do you call them, like a marquee, like a soccer player who is like the all looks like a celebrity but doesn't do anything. The marquee,
a spokesperson.
Yeah. And then you get someone who might actually get on the phone. And then you get maybe another level, there's a third level, someone who will actually do some recruiting and then go, okay, so for you down the end, because you're just going to turn up to meetings and just give us our feedback, we'll offer you 1%. And if you, or maybe it's 0.5% or 0.25% of a one share, 1%, at that valuation at that point in time. And then if you're going to be on the phones, maybe it's 0.5%. And if you're going to be doing recruiting, then you're going to get 1%. So is it some sort of structure like that, invested over a period of time? If they're happy leaver, unhappy leaver?
Yeah, 100%. So what I found to be most successful is basically a success fee. So it doesn't actually come in the form of equity, but it's equity-like. If you give somebody equity or options, then you're basically adding them onto your cap table, and nobody wants a cap table that's messier than it needs to be, especially if the advisory firm has multiple individuals. You don't want to add 3 more people to your cap table.
Yeah.
So what I found works best is a success fee based on increase in valuation. So for example, if you're a $5 million company, if you give somebody 2% of that, then you've basically given them credit for all the hard work you've done to get to $5 million. Yeah. Whereas I find that what works best, give them credit from 5 million to above. So let's say, simple math, if the company grows from 5 million to 50 million, now they're getting credit for $45 million in growth and not the entire 50. Well, maybe in that case the numbers aren't that different, but you get my point. If you're bringing an advisor 30 and the advisor helps get you to 40 and the sale, that advisor is only getting 1, 2, or 3 whatever percentage points on that incremental value, and I found that works really well.
Okay, awesome. There's I'm frantically writing notes there. That's why my head is down. I'm writing notes. But also,
you can watch this podcast later.
But I'm one of those learners. I have to engage as many senses as I can. The eyes, the touch, feel, and sometimes when I was studying, I had the essence in the background, the smelling essence, the yin yang and the yellow grass, and trying to encourage everything. So I find that there's almost an art to taking notes too, though, because sometimes you look back at your notes and go, "What the hell was that?" So there's a bit of an art to the shorthand. So fantastic. So there's one thing then is what they say about leaders are born, not made, or leaders are made, not born. What's your perspective? And then in this scenario, then, if they're not born and you need to, make them, how do you make them?
Oh, I think you could definitely make a leader. So I mean, it definitely helps if you're born. That's fantastic. You're gifted. But leaders can definitely be made if they're open to new ideas and if they're open to education. There's 1 million books that are out there, and there's dozens that come out, every single month on every single, leadership and management topic that's out there. There are some classics, that have, withstood the test of time. One of my recent favorites is Great CEOs Are Lazy. Check it out.
Great CEOs are lazy.
Great CEOs are lazy, and it's applicable to any management level. But again, if somebody is open to change, to learning, and to coaching, then they can definitely be made. Okay. If somebody brings in an advisor, it's a bit. I've probably personally had this experience where I was working with entrepreneurs and they loved everything I had to say but did nothing.
Yeah. Tell me about that pain. I have had that pain. Yeah, isn't that annoying? I had, it's actually a personal friend of mine, and he'll probably watch this and go, "You bastard!" No, this is what happened, and this is what happened. And I said to him at the start, and I said, "Okay, mate, I said, look, I'd like to help you, but I'm in the UK, and you're back in New Zealand." And then he goes, "Well, I don't trust anyone, and I'd only do it with you." And I was going, "Well, I'm honored and flattered, but okay, let's just have this conversation and see where it goes. But I'll ask you this question now, because I don't want to ask you again in 6 months' time and you're going to change your mind." I said, "Are you willing to change?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "I'm careful what you say, because we're going to put this together. And then in 6 months' time, I don't want you to turn around and say no." And of course, 6 months later, that's exactly what he turned around and said. He goes, "You're changing the vision of the company. You're changing this." I said, well, this was it's a supplement business. It was doing quite well in revenue. One man, he was pretty much doing everything himself. One man band. Last man standing after 10 years. A lot of the time, a lot of guys started their own supplement company 10 years ago, and he's the last man standing. And that was his claim to fame. And I said, great, fantastic. I said, so tell me, who started after you started then? Oh, he goes, oh, just a couple of guys, just a couple of small guys. And I said, I looked them up. One of them sold for 30 million to a milk producer, and another one was 20 million to another type who saw them, as would be classic, a gap in their portfolio, and thought these guys could fill the gap in the portfolio. Instead of building it themselves, they just brought it. And he goes, yeah, that's what I want to do. And I said, the only way you're going to do that is if you look like you're the gap in that portfolio. And at the moment you don't. And I said, but if you do want to, then you need to start working your way towards it. And so the vision is that. And then we got to the end of the 6 months, had everything in place to go, okay, this is now, you talked about the team, all the partners, and it was, oh no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I said, we've had this conversation 6 months ago, so we don't have it again. and so we had a little bit of a falling out, but we're really good now. And then I said, how's business? He goes, oh yeah, it's pretty good now. I said, why? Because I pretty much implemented everything you said. I was like, I said, well, at least at least I wasn't talking out a hole on my backside, right? Yeah. So yeah. So okay. So the leaders, so I'd imagine it's a major part of your delivery is the coaching space around CEOs to help not only transform their business, if that was reactive processes, to streamline them to get to that 15 days procure to pay, all that process, financial processes down, from 15 days to 3 days is like remarkable. Was that almost 80% improvement? So so that's transforming the business. What about transforming even maybe the CEO the founder is going to stay the journey from inception, startup, launch, and then they go all the way to exit. Is it the same person? Assuming it's the same person that goes all the way, there's some sort of mindset, leadership shift that needed.
Sure. No, there's a huge shift that's needed. I mean, again, unless somebody's a serial entrepreneur, obviously, then they personally have been there, done that, so they know exactly what that journey is like. Yep. So your journey is going to be very, very different from somebody who's doing this for the very first time. I'm a firm believer, and I say this all the time, and this applies to everything. Anytime you do something for the first time, you're not going to do it as well until the second time or the third time. So this is your first company. This is your first baby. It just behooves you to obviously to continuously pivot your own capabilities and your own, and just to always be learning, because unless you are, mistakes are guaranteed. I made a million of them, and so I'm happy to share them, and I'm happy to help others avoid them.
Okay, so I'd imagine then with some CEOs, like I've seen personally with people close to me, who will remain anonymous, that they don't handle change well, also don't handle probably feedback well. They don't like to fail, so they are scared of trying, or talk about what they want to do, but don't actually do it. And so time will pass and opportunities will get missed, and then questions get asked, okay, what did you do? And there's a lot of excuses come.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a 1,000,001 sayings on this. If you sign up to any of the motivational channels on YouTube or LinkedIn, there's a 1,000,001 posters of you miss every single shot you never take, and then and there's 10 versions of that one alone. And the pyramid. I'm sorry, the iceberg with the tip with the tip of success.
Success. Yep.
So there's a 1,000,001 of those. So you just have to believe in them and take action.
Yeah. Okay. So is there like any for a particular founder, for example, you'd say your top 3 tips that you'd give these founders who are setting off for the first time? Either they're setting off as they've got just the idea, or they're now at the point where you want to you engage with them at the 5 million mark. What's the 3 top things that you tell them? Okay, this is what you really need to focus on. Forget everything else, just this.
Yeah. Top 3 things. Again, I'm probably going to reiterate what I said, but it's definitely the team is huge, right? So you have to make sure that you're surrounded with the right team. You have to make sure that you have the right strategy. It's amazing. There's examples of great products just having the wrong strategy. And so just a modification of strategy can definitely make a huge difference. And if I had to pick a third, and some companies are built around this to begin with, others are not. Recurring revenue. A lot of companies are victims of their own success, and to continue to grow really, really well, double-digit growth, but they don't have recurring revenue. They may have recurring revenue, customers, come back and stuff like that, but they don't have true recurring revenue. And that's going to be the single biggest difference in your valuation at the end of the day. If you're a $50 million company with project-based revenue versus a $50 million company with recurring revenue, the difference is probably going to be 2 to 4x.
Whoa.
In your valuation. So a high concentration of recurring revenue. If you have it, great, make it better. If you don't have it, turn your stuff around to turn it into recurring revenue somehow, some way, or add recurring revenue to what you already have.
Okay, so that's a good tips here. So the first was which you said from the top of the hour, with the teamwork. Surround yourself with the right people. So and a lot of motivation books that I've read over the years, they talk about the 5 5s. And I tell a lot of people, there's rate your friends on how successful you think they are on 1 to 5, and they say, well, what's success? And I said, well, that's the good thing about success, right? It's up to you. You determine what success means. Someone who's got a job in a food court, they're successful because they got a job. That's if that's your version of success, that's success. So you rate the 1 to 5, and then do it for the 5 people you spend the most time with, and then whatever the average is, that's you. And then some people will say, I let them go through that little exercise first before I tell them the average, and then I go the averages, and they go the average, and then they go my average is it's a 2. And I go, well, hey, so now you know what you are. Like you started from the beginning, is understand what you have. So with your team, with the capability of the CEO. So understanding this will be understanding in a personal environment. Understand your peers or your colleagues, the people you hang around with. And if it's a 2, well, you got choices. You can either help your 2s become 5s, or go find other 5s.
Exactly.
And that's what you were doing. You do there is you assess the board, assess the senior stakeholders, and then if they needed to be replaced, you replace them. So like go from the 2 to the 5. Okay, we've got to go find them. Let's go get them. And the other one is a strategy. Number 2 is the strategy, is to make sure you've got a good strategy, as opposed to, I don't smoke, but on the back of a fag packet, because this is our strategy. So you might need a little bit more robust strategy than that one. And if it needs modification, and then don't be scared to change it, right?
Exactly. And that's the hardest pill for somebody to swallow, because to my earlier comment of, they're used to things being done a certain way, and they're afraid changing it is going to really upset the apple cart. And change, and we've gone through some serious change. I mean, we've gone through enormous change within our organization, from a restructuring and a modified go-to-market perspective, which was scary for everybody, mostly for me, because it was my company. But we implemented it, and I got a perfect example of success. And I'm sure there's plenty others out there that can benefit from a strategic change, either to their organization, to their processes, to their structure, to their go-to-market. Everything can be improved.
Yeah, so with that, this is they say a CEO or the founder knows they need to change, but they might not know how to change.
Right.
And so they might even not know where to look for help, and they look to the current peers and go, actually, and this is what I find the most in terms of transformation, that the business knows, or the client, the leadership team know they need to change. They don't know how to do the change. They see some consultants that they market themselves as change agents or transformation agents, but from past experience, they know, well, if we get these guys in, we might just get a big bloody bill and no transformation. So and then they go, let's have a crack at it ourselves. And then, they throw a lot of money at it and trying to build the people up with really no structure. And then at the end of it, they go, shit, let's just can that and bring in those consultants anyway. And yeah, so is that the kind of situation in your market?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a lot easier for an executive to implement some sort of change when it's being brought in from the outside. A lot of people roll their eyes when they see when they're with a team of executives or leaders, they see a consultant come in to help. There's the inevitable, rolling of the eyes. What's this guy or gal tell us that we don't already know? But it's a really, really effective tool for a senior executive or the CEO or the founder to say, well, we brought this person in because they have experience here, and we're paying, so we're going to listen, and then we're going to implement the recommendations. So an outsider is often a very effective tool to an organization.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm on board with you with that one. Yeah, definitely an outsider. I see some of the bigger organizations when I think they could have developed this capability themselves to change their own business. It's almost like a risk management strategy where they decide to bring in consultants and if it all goes pear-shaped, they're going to go, hey, it was those guys. It was them. But whereas I think I don't know if it's a good consultant, but what consultants should be doing is they lead with, we are going to present you your options. It's the decision that will be made by you. We're not making the decision for you. This is your decision. We'll give you the options based on the, with the assessment analysis and the discovery work that you mentioned earlier, and then we'll play them back to you, and then it's up to you to make the decision, and then we'll go and implement it.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So yeah, definitely outside. Now, do you see any current, like, is there any myths, like say in startup? I know there's a myth, is that like it's a trendy right now. Is going, I'm going to be a CEO. I hear this all the time, and I go, you want to be a CEO? I'll tell you how easy it is to be a CEO. There's a website, it's called .gov.uk, and you go to a place on there, it's called Company's House, and you register a company, and boom, you're a CEO, just like that.
Yes.
Yeah, you are now a CEO. I said, I think the question you want to ask was the wrong question. Is a successful CEO?
Yeah, I mean, I think the myths that are out there, I think one of the biggest myths is like nobody else other than me can do this. I've taken the company, I found it was my idea. I've taken it to this level, years and years of blood, sweat, and tears, and nobody else can take this any further other than me because of all my knowledge. I think that's one of the biggest myths, and unfortunately, that's in a lot of heads of a lot of founders, and they couldn't be further from the truth that there isn't somebody out there that can do it, bigger, better that they can. I'm not saying it's easy. Listen, there's for every example of a successful CEO hire, there's probably 5 examples for bringing in another CEO who was a disaster, right? Yes. Apple, perfect example. Had a humongous, and there's probably a whole ton of smaller examples. So, but again, I think that's just a huge myth, and folks are fooling themselves that they can't find something to do better.
Yeah, that is probably the hardest part for a founder, because it's their baby. They started and they're more, say, emotionally attached. I think that's probably a big thing with leadership, is that there's a lot of emotion in there. Like if you're dealing with a lawyer in a case, he has the benefit of like stripping back the emotion. He's not in it for the emotion, he's in it for the outcome. And so, that might be you coach as part of the coaching for the CEOs, is looking at that emotional intelligence?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm a huge fan of EQ and having the proper EQ. Some people either have it or they don't. And if you're open to coaching in general, you're open to coaching in a lot of areas. EQ is huge. The assessment of them, personally, is really, really important. If they're open to it. And again, it's a really tricky topic, right? We kind of, while we talk about it at the beginning of the engagement, we really ease into it. We start off with the rest of the team, And then sometimes it comes to, like, to me, it came to me by myself. When I looked around the table and I said, I've got this incredible team of executives. I'm going to need an executive that's better than them to,
Yeah.
to lead this. And I felt that, I was ready for my promotion to executive chairman.
Yeah, awesome. So when so I see a lot of when guys and girls, people start their companies, they want to hire friends, right? And they think this is the, I trust this, I trust these people, so therefore I should do business with them. And then it gets to a point where they go, maybe it wasn't a good idea that I hired my friend because he's underperforming, but I don't want to fire him because I know it's going to now affect his wife and the kids and that, so do you find that this is a situation that happens?
It's the worst possible thing that you can do. And over beer, I'll share a ton of stories with folks. I had a personal policy that no friends and family allowed to work in my company. And I had plenty of relatives that needed jobs in the space. Even though I had opportunities, I just refused. And just when speaking with other founders, and especially as part of the CEO roundtable that I used to be part of, that in my specific group, you hear so many of these stories. Oh, I've got my uncle working in accounting and I can't get rid of him, or I got my cousin as an equity holder and he's a pain and I can't get. There's so many stories. So if you can create the will not to do it and the discipline not to do it, you will benefit from it.
The discipline there is coming in again. Okay, do not hire your family. I think I got a shitload of excuses. I got a lot of quotes here. And do not hire family. End of. Okay, friends and family. Do not hire friends and family.
I mean, there's a 10% chance of success. There are success stories out there. There's great, wife co-CEOs. There's great relative relationships. But if I had to throw a percentage at it, I'd say there's a 90% likelihood that it's not going to work out long term.
Okay, so you want to have almost like a fixed term contract. So this is going to be for 12 months. Sorry, but we'll be so transparent up front. If we maybe put some of that employee incentive plan, if we take it from 5 million to 50 million, then okay, I'll chuck you a bit of equity or some support on success fee. But there is an end to this. There's an end state, and it's not going past this state. And so. And
I like that agreement at the end. One of my favorite statements is everything in life is easy to get into, hard to get out of, which is why I back into parking spaces. So I can easily get out of a parking space without any blind spots. Same has to do with employment relationships. It's super easy to get into it, very, very hard to get out of it. So if you have those parameters in place at the get-go, the getting out is going to be super easy.
Yeah, okay. So you've got. I want to ask you one more question, but I want to start from the beginning. To summarize the process so far, is that you're looking at the CEO, you're looking at the team, you make some assessments of current state, future state. You get make sure the vision, the strategy is all in place. You do some hiring where you need to. You definitely what is the strategy and execution. Make sure that one, you've got the strategy, and then if you said with the peer group there, you get the guys at a similar level of business success at that time or revenue, but different industries. So this heterogeneous group, mastermind group, to come and challenge each other. There was a bit of element there of forecasts versus actuals. So you're making them accountable that you're not coming around there for a talk fest. And it's actually 2 days, so probably 2 days off site. So you got to take it serious. And a particular business challenge there that you're presenting, and then you're planning from the start, from the very, very beginning. This is like Steven Pivnik, the 7 Habits of Successful People, Effective People. Begin with the end in mind. You've already got the exit. That's the end in mind, and we're going to build everything to support that. So this is the transform the organization to that point. You've done it through setting the vision clear from the beginning. Make sure the team was there. You put the strategy in place. You streamline the processes. So this is you basically got a well-oiled machine at this point. Then so your presentation of when the financials is looking good. You've got your team in place, your accountants, the legals team. You've got a corporate finance team. If then you need it, you might have to bite the bullet because it's going to cost you. But if that's only short-term thinking, you have not hired any family members, so you don't have any that problem. No husband and wife CEO co-CEO arrangements. What else did we have there? Oh, you did focus on when you're doing the hiring, that's good hiring is that you've got they would, if you're lucky, they're going to bring their team, but they've got the people, their process, they're well oiled, so they're going to slide into your organization with a clear process with great tools, because this is what they do. And then the part about the leadership is that leaders can be developed. They might not be born, but they can be developed, and so you work with them with that one. Your three takeaways were that the number one was the team. Surround yourself with the right people. Strategy, don't be scared to modify it. And then they want to focus on the third thing, the recurring revenue. And it's a difference between, you said product revenue, which sounds like more one-off revenue, and you have to repeat the sales process. But if you can get recurring revenue, and then just because you're looking at a good what that impact is for the exit, the 2 to 4 plus potentially valuation. The outsider miss, what were we saying there? The outsider, bring in the outsiders. Definitely bring in outsiders perspective for a few reasons. I think what you're talking about there was has to be some pain. If the business themselves or the CEO say, we're bringing these guys in, it's costing us. It's going to cost us, and it's going to hurt us in the hip. And if it goes shit, it's going to hurt us in the hip even more. So we've done the due diligence, we've got the right guys in, and so we need to listen. We've exhausted our sphere of knowledge and expertise, so we're going to go bring in the expertise. So you need to listen. Yeah. Okay. Now, all right. So given that, and there's a few mythbusters that you see. The mythbusters is, what would you say about the myth? Well, the myth. No one can do it better than me. No one. Yeah, I think that's that's my buddy in New Zealand. It's like I said. Actually, this is the one thing he did say to me. He said at that point in time, he said, bro, I don't want any more business. And I said, dude, just imagine this. You're the CEO and I'm the chairman, and you just came to the chairman. I actually said these words, and I said, you're the chairman, I'm the chairman, and you just came to me and said that you don't want any more business. I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm firing your ass. And I said, that's the worst thing that a CEO could say to the chairman, that I don't want any more business because I can't handle any more business. That's not the answer. The answer is, how can you handle the more business?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So now, in your own perspective as both a former founder, currently founder, also advisor to other founders, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? I would drink my own Kool-Aid here and take my own advice a lot earlier in the company's growth. I mean, I learned all this over a 27-year journey. Fortunately, I started super early, and I'm still relatively young where I can do this again, probably a couple of times if I wanted to. So I wish I would have done all this a lot earlier versus the blood, sweat, and tears, the unnecessary tears that occurred, throughout the corporate journey. So that's probably the biggest.
Okay,
the biggest.
You would like to have one maybe started earlier, but two, listened to your own advice.
Right, just the team, the strategy, and my third one, recurring revenue. I mean, we were, the reason I bring this up is because we were a victim of our own success. We grew every single year for 27 years. There wasn't one year where we didn't have corporate growth. Some years were single digit, some years were double digit growth for 27 years in a row. But we started off every single year at zero. So we needed to sell all of last year's business and then more and then some to achieve growth. So we were so busy and successful doing what we did that we didn't focus on the recurring. It was project-based work. It was software and services, but it was project-based software and services versus leave behind SaaS type recurring revenue services. So not complaining. It was a great journey, great exit, but it could have been better if we had.
Okay, so for all those potential founders, I think maybe you're in a unique position that you might have in terms of and maybe the EQ, emotional intelligence, that and even a natural, let's just say, a deposition for maybe business or business strategy and how everything is connected together. You got to build a team. Maybe a normal founders don't have that. They might just have a product idea and they go, I've got to build this product and I'm going to somehow sell it, or maybe I need to think about how I'm going to sell it. But you maybe had the full picture to start with. Maybe not had the experience, but then it had the full picture, and then you knew you had to go out and get it. And so for other founders who are in a similar situation, is I think probably then just like an agile approach, just try.
Mm-hmm.
Just start, and then you'll work it out as you go along.
Just start. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and there's people that have already done this, so get their advice. You can get expensive advisors, you can get free advice. I mean, everybody wants to give advice, so just go out there and get it.
Okay, so yeah, that's a good point, because I when people ask me about certain things and I go, this is going to cost this much, and they go, oh, they want it for free. I said, I'll tell you how much you're going to value the free advice. You're not. So, and it's going to waste my time. And so anyone who's going to give free advice is like, oh, I'm happy to give it to you if you act on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, but otherwise, no. Yeah. Well, Steven, I want to wrap it up there, but I want to keep you on because I want to ask you something at the end of here, because there's some great things that you said, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Just one thing I forgot to add in terms of strategic planning. Wealth management is also super important, because once the event actually occurs and you get a really fat check, you have to have your ducks in a row in terms of what you're doing with it, because you can make a lot of mistakes with that, because it's a highly emotional time when that actually happens, and it's very anticlimactic, because all of a sudden you've been running 1,000 miles an hour, now you're done, and you have a check. Exploring all the options on what you can do with that is incredibly important, and that I can probably speak about that for an hour in and of itself.
Well, we will do another one. We'll do another one for that for sure. So to recap there, so the four takeaways. One was the team. Make sure you surround yourself with the right people, and then I think the part there is don't be afraid to swap them out, and definitely don't hire your family. Don't hire your friends and family. Rule number one. Maybe there's some principles that Steven's got, the principles of CEO transformation and startup to exit transformation. Strategy, make sure it's in place, and then change it as and when you need it. Don't be afraid to change it. Focus on recurring revenue. And the fourth one is wealth management.
And planning for it way ahead of the exit event.
Yeah, planning, for way ahead. And you said 12 to 24 months. In the event that it's going to happen.
Exactly.
Because that's the goal.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We've had Steven Pivnik on the call. I hope you found that enlightening. That was really the masterclass on how to transform CEOs or founders to proper CEOs, but also from startup to exit. Thank you very much, Steven.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.